I want to start with a basic question for Secretary Witkowski. What matrix will you be using to define success? 10 years from now, how will we know if these strategies have worked? And please be as brief as you can.
Thank you, Representative Omar, for that excellent question. Establishing measures of success will be a central feature of the work that we do going forward. And the measures of success will be different for the different countries, depending on the context, depending on the work that is undertaken there, depending on the partnerships that we establish both at the government level and with others within the partner countries where we are going to be working. We can imagine a variety of features of what might constitute success: more resilient partners, partners that have managed themselves to shore up democratic backsliding or prevent the spread of violent extremism. The details of what constitutes success, what we're working toward in a process, we will be establishing as we develop the 10-year implementation plans. There's also a second feature of the work that we're doing on the Global Fragility Act that I think is important to mention, and it's already been raised here today, and that is the how. The how are we doing our work? With whom are we consulting? With whom are we partnering? How is the U.S. government aligned itself against a common set of objectives in each of these places? To what extent are we implementing what we say we're going to do, which is to monitor, evaluate, and learn our lessons on the ground and apply them going forward? So there will be two ways of looking at this. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious if you can also state what our priorities are in Libya, and how will the GFA approach to Libya differ from our policies there over the last 10 years? Assistant Secretary Witkowski.
Thank you. In Libya, our assistance will undergird current U.S. government efforts and is intended to help achieve a stronger and more unified Libya in the long run. We believe that through the work under the strategy aligned to other government efforts, we can help Libya realize its economic potential, control its territory, live free of foreign interference, and be a future security partner. We are looking forward to the opportunity to work in this context in Libya and with actors in Libya to advance the goals of the Global Fragility Act going forward.
Deputy Secretary Sienz, in your testimony, you discussed lessons from previous DoD involvement in high conflict places. I want to talk about some of those lessons learned. You mentioned the IMET program, which provides military training. One thing I think we know for certain is that human rights abuses by government forces lead to terrorist recruitment and encourage conflict. Can you tell us about the success of the stories for IMET, and where can you point to an example where DoD training is helping improve partner militaries' human rights records?
Well, thank you, Representative, for that question. And it's a very important question, and the Department of Defense takes human rights extremely important, and it is actually part of our process in determining who we are going to work with. We do not work with units that have records of human rights abuse, and we look for organizations that are prepared to accept our training. Human rights protection and democratic principles of subordination of a military to civilian authority are always part of all the training that we provide. And so we provide training globally. So while there have been challenges in the past and there have been opportunities for ill-intentioned actors to take the training that we provided them and use it inappropriately, there are many examples globally of how we've been able to do successfully. We've talked about Plan Colombia, and there's been lots of opportunities for us to engage with the Colombian armed forces And I think the Department of Defense has done well to help professionalize that military and help give it its capabilities that it has now, to the point where it is also exporting its own training to its neighbors to help its neighbors understand the proper role of a military and to protect human rights.
Deputy Secretary, I wish we had more opportunity to go through some of the lessons learned, but my time has expired, and I yield back, Ms. Chairwoman. Deputy Assistant Sians, I think one of the main reasons, as we just go back to lessons learned in our previous discussion, one of the main lessons from the war in Afghanistan is that it's a mistake for DoD to be the policy lead. Some say those lessons also apply to our policies in Somalia, the Sahel region, and elsewhere. Do you agree with that assessment?
Thank you, Representative Omar, for that question. I do agree that it is not the best use of our military for our military to be lead in any one country for all of the United States government entities. We all have our appropriate roles of which we should be filling. And that's what I think is one of the powers of the Global Fragility Act. We talk about the 3 Ds: diplomacy, development, and defense, with our friends at State Department in lead for its implementation, our friends at USAID responsible for its implementation on the ground, and Department of Defense in support. And I think that's an appropriate role for the Department of Defense. Now, that's not to say that we are in any means taking a step back, but we do understand that our role is to support the efforts of USAID and state as we can through administrative, logistics, and operational support, and then also to make sure that what we do within the security arena aligns, as we talked about before, with an overall plan to help develop the stability of any one nation or region.
Thank you for that. It is true that there is more that we can do with diplomacy and aid in many of these regions, and I do agree that one of the things that's really important about the Fragility Act is that not only does it encourage collaboration, but it also encourages us to take the long view. I think our foreign policy is very often short-sighted, and this is a much needed course correction. This question is to all the panelists. Do you have plans to course correct if things are not going well in a partner country under GFA?
Thank you for that question. It's our obligation, our duty, to ensure that we are keeping a very close eye on how our work is going with respect to each of the priority countries and the region that have been identified under the Global Fragility Act, and we fully intend to do that. Course correction and course corrections will be, we think, in front of us as we go forward. Surely we will have to make adjustments as we move forward with our implementation plans. There is also a provision to ensure that we are doing a high-level review of each of these countries that we've chosen to partner with on an annual basis. And so there are lots of different ways that we'll conduct our oversight and keep a close eye on the progress that we're making, where we are making less progress, and what changes we need to implement as a result. Thank you.
And if I might just add...
That's really... Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, if I might just add, adaptive management is going to be the linchpin for how we implement these strategies. And we need to have a 10-year strategy, but we need to have iterative and adaptable tactics within that strategy. A big part of my job, when I'm not focused just on GFA, is trying to get more of USAID to accept dynamic, adaptable management in complex systemic environments. And you have our word that part of this act that we will stick to is to stop doing things that aren't working and to change things when they need to be changed. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. That's music to my ears. I do hope that the reviews do take place. I hope that implementation of the recommendations do take place, and I hope this committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee as a whole doesn't lose sight of our oversight duties as we continue. With that, I yield back, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you.